sit in a room alone with no phone and no sound for 10 minutes. Most people can't do it. That inability is telling you something. In 2014, psychologists at the University of Virginia ran a simple experiment. They put people in a room with nothing but a chair and their thoughts. No phone, no book, no music, no window to look through. Just 15 minutes alone with the contents of their own mind. But before leaving them alone, the researchers did something unusual. They gave each participant access to a button that would deliver a mild electric shock. They let everyone try it first so they knew exactly how unpleasant it was. Every single person confirmed they wanted to avoid it. Then, the researchers left. 15 minutes of silence began. Here's what they found. 67% of men and 25% of women chose to shock themselves rather than sit quietly. One man shocked himself 190 times. Think about that for a moment. These weren't troubled people. They were ordinary volunteers, students, professionals, retirees, people who would describe themselves as normal, stable, fine. And when left alone with themselves, they chose physical pain. Pain they already knew they hated. Pain they had asked to avoid. Because apparently, silence was worse. The researchers were stunned. They had expected boredom, not desperation. They had discovered something hiding beneath the surface of everyday life. Most people would rather hurt themselves than be alone with their thoughts. And here's what makes this uncomfortable. You probably think you'd be different. You probably haven't tested that belief in a very long time. Because modern life has made sure you never have to. Think about the last time you were truly quiet. Not sleeping, not reading, not listening to anything. Just sitting with nothing but the contents of your own mind. Most people can't remember. That's not an accident. You've been living inside an architecture designed to prevent exactly that moment. Start with the simplest layer, background noise. The television nobody watches but nobody turns off. The podcast playing while you cook, clean, commute, shower. The music that starts the moment you get in the car. These aren't choices anymore. They're reflexes. Then there's your phone. The average person checks it 96 times a day. That's once every 10 minutes you're awake. Every 10 minutes you reach for an escape hatch. An escape from what, exactly? From the 15 seconds of nothing that might otherwise occur? Think about what that means. 15 seconds of your own uninterrupted thoughts has become intolerable. And it wasn't always this way. Your grandparents had hours of silence built into every day, waiting for the bus, walking to work, sitting in a room with nothing to do. They survived it. You've been trained not to. The training started before you could consent to it. Every restaurant with a screen to keep children quiet. Every waiting room with a television on the wall. Every gas pump that plays advertisements while you fuel your car. The message is consistent. Stillness is a void to be filled, and someone is always ready to fill it for you. They've made billions ensuring you never have to be alone with yourself. Not because they care about your entertainment, because your attention is the product they sell, and silence is bad for business. So here you are, surrounded by an infrastructure of noise you didn't build and didn't ask for, an infrastructure so complete that silence now requires active effort. You have to fight for it, and the moment you win that fight, you'll discover exactly why you've been avoiding it. The first thing silence does is lie to you. It tells you this will be peaceful. For about 90 seconds, it even feels that way. Then something shifts. Your brain, which has been receiving a constant stream of input for hours, suddenly has nothing to process. and it doesn't like that. The default mode network, the part of your brain that activates when you're not focused on anything external, begins to wake up. This is the network responsible for self-reflection, memory, and planning. It's also responsible for anxiety, rumination, and dread. When there's no external world to focus on, your brain turns inward, and it starts to talk. Not in words exactly, in sensations. A tightness in your chest you didn't notice before. A restlessness in your legs that wasn't there a minute ago. A sudden, urgent need to check something, anything. Your brain is generating discomfort on purpose. It's trying to make you move, to hunt, to forage, to scan the horizon for threats. Stillness, to your ancient nervous system, means you've stopped paying attention. And stopped paying attention means you might be dead soon. So your body floods with low-grade alarm. Not panic, something subtler. A persistent hum of unease you can't locate or name. Then come the thoughts. Not the thoughts you choose, the ones that arrive uninvited. The conversation you handled badly 3 years ago. The thing you said that you can never take back. The opportunity you missed when you were too afraid to act. These thoughts have been waiting. Noise keeps them at bay. Distraction holds the door closed. But silence opens it. And what walks through is everything you've been running from. This is why people hate silence. Not because it's empty, because it's full. Full of everything you've been too busy to feel, too occupied to process, too distracted to face. The silence doesn't create these things. It just stops hiding them. And now you have to look at what's been there all along. The first thing you meet is grief. Not the grief you processed at funerals, surrounded by people, saying the right things. The other grief. The kind that never had a ceremony. The friendship that ended without a fight, just a slow fade into nothing. The version of your life that didn't happen. The path you didn't take. The door you closed. The person you stopped becoming. You've been carrying this for years without ever putting it down. Silence makes you put it down. And then you have to look at it. The second thing you meet is the decisions you've been avoiding. The conversation you need to have that you keep postponing. The job you know you should leave. The relationship that stopped being a relationship a long time ago. The health appointment you keep not making. These decisions haven't gone away because you stopped thinking about them. They've been compounding. Every day you don't decide, you're still deciding. You're choosing the default, which has its own consequences. Silence shows you exactly what those consequences are. Then comes the hardest part, the gap between who you are and who you've been pretending to be. You've been performing a version of yourself for so long, you forgot it was a performance. The confident one who has everything figured out. The easygoing one who never lets things bother them. The successful one whose life looks exactly how it should look. In silence, that performance has no audience. And without an audience, you have to ask who you're performing for. The answer is uncomfortable. You've been performing for yourself, trying to believe your own story. And some part of you has always known it wasn't true. Beneath all of this are the questions, the ones you've been running from for years. Is this really what I want my life to be? Am I actually happy, or have I just gotten used to this? Do the people in my life actually know me? Do I actually know myself? What am I so afraid of? These questions don't have easy answers. That's exactly why you've been drowning them out. Every notification, every playlist, every screen, a wall between you and these questions. And for a while, walls work. But silence takes the wall down. And what's behind it has been waiting patiently for you to look. Most people treat the discomfort of silence like an alarm, something screaming at them to escape. But what if the alarm isn't warning you of danger? What if it's telling you exactly where to look? A doctor doesn't tell you to ignore pain. They ask where it hurts. The location of the pain is the diagnosis. The discomfort you feel in silence works the same way. It's not random static. It's a signal with a source. The thought that surfaces first when the noise stops. That's your mind telling you what it's been trying to process. The memory you keep pushing away. That's unfinished business demanding attention. The anxiety that floods in the moment you sit still. That's the accumulated weight of everything you haven't faced. Most people feel this weight and conclude, silence is bad, I should avoid it. But that's like concluding that scales are bad because they show your weight. The instrument isn't the problem, it's the measurement you're afraid of. Here's what nobody tells you. Avoidance compounds. Every time you flee from an uncomfortable thought, you add a small weight to a pile you'll eventually have to carry. Distraction doesn't make the weight disappear, it just delays the way in. And while you're not looking, the pile grows. This is why chronic avoiders often feel an inexplicable heaviness they can't name. They're carrying years of unfelt feelings, undone griefs, and unmade decisions. The weight is invisible because they never sit still long enough to feel where it presses. Think of the discomfort in silence as a debt statement. The more you owe your own psyche, the larger the number. Refusing to open the envelope doesn't reduce the debt, it just lets the interest accumulate. This is the cost nobody factors in. Avoidance is paid for with the quality of your life. Every moment spent fleeing yourself is a moment spent half present with everyone else. Your relationships suffer because part of you is always somewhere else, managing the weight you won't acknowledge. Your decisions suffer because you can't think clearly when half your mind is running interference on the other half. Your sleep suffers because the only time you can't scroll is the moment you close your eyes. The discomfort of silence isn't a warning to flee. It's a map. It shows you exactly which rooms in your mind you've locked and walked away from. The intensity of your urge to escape is precisely proportional to the importance of staying. Whatever you most want to avoid is almost certainly what you most need to face. This is the strange paradox of inner work. The path through is exactly where you don't want to go. But some people learn to walk through anyway. They don't start out different from you. The ones who learned to stay in silence were once the ones who fled fastest. The difference is that one day, they stopped running. Not because they felt ready. They never felt ready. They simply got tired of carrying the weight of their own avoidance. The first thing they notice is that they don't die. The anxiety peaks somewhere around minute 3. Then something strange happens. It begins to pass. The desperate need for distraction doesn't disappear, but it starts to feel like weather, something moving through rather than something true. They discover that thoughts, left alone, eventually exhaust themselves. The voices that seem so urgent turn out to be echoes, repeating old recordings that have nothing new to say. And beneath the echoes, they find something unexpected, a kind of ground. Not happiness, something more fundamental, a sense of being present in their own life instead of narrating it from somewhere outside. They start to notice what they actually want, not what they were told to want, not what would impress others. The clarity isn't dramatic. It arrives like knowing you're hungry before you've named it. Decisions that paralyze them for months suddenly have obvious answers. Not because the answers changed, but because they can finally hear themselves think. Their relationships change too. When you can tolerate silence in yourself, you stop needing others to fill it for you. You can actually listen instead of waiting for your turn to speak. The need to perform exhausting versions of yourself starts to fade. You have less to prove because you've stopped trying to prove it to yourself. The strangest change is in how they experience boredom. What once felt like slow suffocation starts to feel like room to breathe. Empty time becomes creative time, reflective time, time that belongs to them. They don't become monks or minimalists necessarily. They become people who can choose their noise instead of being chosen by it. They find they can enter chaos and return to stillness, because stillness now lives somewhere inside them. The practice that created this isn't complicated. It just requires something most people have spent their whole lives avoiding. 10 minutes. That's the practice in its entirety. No phone, no music, no book, no meditation app telling you when to breathe. Just you, sitting, with whatever arises. The instructions are so simple they feel like an insult, and the resistance will be immediate. Your mind will generate urgent tasks that did not exist 30 seconds ago. You will suddenly need to check something, fix something, respond to something. This is the noise fighting to survive. Notice it and stay anyway. The thoughts that surface will not be pleasant. They will be exactly the ones you've been drowning out. This is not a sign that the practice is failing. This is the practice working. What you cannot sit with will continue to run your life from beneath the surface. What you can sit with loses its power to drive you. The willingness to face yourself in silence is the beginning of something most people never find. Not peace as the world sells it, constant stimulation packaged as contentment, but peace as the ability to be alone with yourself without needing to escape. That is what 10 minutes can build over time. A tolerance, then a capacity, then something that starts to feel like home. Most people will not do this. They will watch this, agree, and reach for their phone the moment the video ends. The question is not whether you understand. The question is whether you're willing to sit down. The screen will go dark, and in that silence, you'll discover which voice speaks first.